been to one the other night.
Welcome back to performance management. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Okay, so we've done all our communication and monitoring. We've collected all of our KPIs. We've reviewed them. We've compiled them. We've forwarded them up into a. We've compiled them and made a report. We send it up to management, that report. We do that quarterly. Okay, so we've done that. Now we move on to managing poor performance. This involves the provision of counselling, not cancelling. And this is a big part of it too. We're not about cancelling people, we're about counselling people. There's a big difference. Most companies, they look at a situation where you have to manage poor performance, you cancel the person. But we're going to be counselling the person.
To help them.
Yeah, to help them, absolutely. So any questions at all at this point?
No. No.
How's the video?
Oh, I do.
Yeah, they were good?
Yep.
Okay, good. Okay, so there's different variations of what we can do in regard to counselling. So we use counselling to rectify behaviours. Now we don't just go up to the person that may be doing some reprehensible behaviour and jump down their throat. They're just going to shut down, they're not going to work with you, they'll make excuses. So we need to counsel them, which is a two-way thing, it's not a one-way thing. We need to work with them and we need to use empathy. We need to find out, okay, what caused the problem, where are the catalysts? What can we do to help? How can we fix it? What went wrong? Okay, so another form of the counselling process is guidance. You've got to give guidance to correct errors. If someone's making an error, you have to say, okay, we use our KPIs, we've got these errors, we need to fix these errors. And we need to be able to provide solutions as well. Okay, this is what's wrong. Do you know what's wrong? Can you see what's wrong? You got any ideas on that? Well, we can fix it. We can use those ideas, or we've got solutions as well. We could try and do this, for example. We could do that. So that's part of the counselling process.
Working together.
Sorry?
Working together.
Working together, absolutely. Yep, working cooperatively. Okay, so we also have counselling to give support. That may involve mentoring. Okay? So basically we're giving information, we're getting information back. They're asking us questions if they don't know something, and we work with them to come to solutions. Yeah. Okay, and another aspect of the provision of counselling is we may need to get in some expert counselling. They may be going, the people in question, they may be going through a difficult time. Something may be going on and they may need our support. Another thing is that they may be doing something wrong and they may need someone who is more appropriate to sort of point things out for them. Counselling may come by the way of a particular expert, maybe a guidance counsellor. Maybe we could refer them if we knew
the problem.
Or if we knew the problem, or if we knew a particular person who could lead them to someone else, like marriage counselling or any situation at all, really. If we have a means of recommending someone, then we could look into that. They may say, no, look, I've got it all under control, and I realise I've got some issues going on and I'm dealing with that. They may not want any involvement. But yeah, so expert counselling is another aspect of things that we may need to address. It may be in regards to having an ombudsman that we have to work with. It may be union, it may be safety committees, it may be a whole range of things where an expert counsellor or expert in a particular area may need to be contributing to the counselling process. Okay, so before we can actually begin any kind of counselling, we've got to identify what's going on. We have to understand what's going on, and this involves a lot of consultation. not just telling. We have to work together. Okay, so managing the disciplinary process. So we covered a lot of that in the videos. We understand what the process actually is in terms of the legal aspect of things. It's something we must follow. Okay, so there are measures that must be taken prior to dismissal to ensure that dismissal is lawful. Must make that happen. Okay, it's a mechanism for rectifying unacceptable behaviour. So, like we said earlier, it's not about counselling. Sorry, it's not about cancelling. It's about counselling. Okay, so we're not just cutting off the head. We want to salvage the worker. We want to retain the worker. So we've got to work with them and come to an arrangement. Identifying catalysts to minimise others sort of adapting the same behaviours. Now the situation may be that we may have a process, a policy, a piece of equipment, materials that aren't appropriate, that have actually caused some form of frustration or caused a catalyst whereby something is going wrong that stimulates the behaviour. So we need to identify that. Okay, does this all make sense?
Yeah.
Yep. Any questions or comments at this point? No? Okay. Okay, we need to avoid being sued. That's a given. We want to be avoiding that. We need to follow everything step by step. Yep. Follow the processes, follow the steps. Okay. And Fair Work has provision for that. We just follow their framework. We do what we're instructed to by Fair Work and cooperate with the ombudsman.
Yeah, that's it.
And yeah, we just play the game by a set of rules. Okay, but there's things to be cautious of. Okay, let's presume for a minute that we have a person who is the golden child. Who is the golden child.
Yeah.
They're doing everything right.
Yeah.
Okay, they've got all these solutions to problems. They're efficient, they're effective, they work well with others, and we've got their back. But this person, they might have demons. They might have this thing where they're causing trouble that we don't know anything about. So, is it appropriate for us to follow up on processes with the golden child? We know they're doing everything right. Do we accept that someone's submitted a complaint? Do we act on that complaint?
Yes.
Absolutely we act on that complaint. Because there may be things that we are not aware of that we need to look into. But there's another side of that coin as well. That's a flip side. With situations where you have the golden child, you may have a situation where this creates jealousy. And you have to look at, okay, the person who's submitting the application, submitting the complaint, do they have a hidden agenda? What's the agenda of that person? We need to look at that as well. Yeah? Okay. So that's two sides of it. Now the other thing is that we may be the problem ourselves. We may be creating problems, like we were saying before, where you have situations where materials or equipment have actually caused the problem. Most commonly, policies can get in the way, and we have to review those policies and fix them. Processes are the same. Processes are actually more common. You might have a process for something, but there's something we've overlooked. There's a niche in the system that we haven't considered. We haven't thought things through. We haven't consulted properly. We haven't discussed things with the workforce that actually do the tasks. And we've overlooked something. So we might have had to fix something up. Are we the problem? Okay. Okay, so we covered that. So that's managing the disciplinary processes. Yeah. Everyone good with that?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So let's move on to termination of employment. We covered that with the videos, as you were well aware of. We would have seen it all. We have a dismissal process. Our policy is that we investigate and consult. We do that first and foremost. That has to happen before everything else.
Yeah.
Consulting is critical. Okay, so in the videos you would have seen you have to give a verbal warning. Okay, now that verbal warning is just basically to say, look, what you're doing is not right. You've got to rectify that behaviour. Then you may have a first written warning. Now the first written warning is made in consultation. You speak with the person, you say this is what you're doing wrong. We have all this evidence here. We've got our KPIs, we have non-conformance reports, we have this report suggesting that you have been behaving inappropriately. We need to rectify that. Now we need a plan. So we come up with a plan together. We work through that plan. And at the end of that, if we haven't come to the right results by a set time frame, so in that meeting we would have set a time frame, say by this date, these things, A, B, C, D, these things need to have had happened before we can move on from there. Okay, so all good?
Yep.
All good, Reese?
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Yeah.
Shirley?
Yeah.
Jumbo?
Yeah.
Awesome, okay. Okay, so we'll review that. We'll take a look at that after the time has expired. Okay, but let's say that they haven't met the agreed terms and conditions. Then we move on to our second written warning. And with the second written warning, it's basically an amendment of the first warning. We have to establish, okay, this hasn't happened. Why hasn't it happened? So we have to make adjustments so that we can make it happen. And then we come back to another review further down the track. And again, that's got to be in a set time frame.